We're in our teaching greenhouses here at the Oklahoma State University campus in Stillwater. And it's nice to be inside today because we are getting a little shower outside, which we desperately need for our spring gardens. Last year on Oklahoma Gardening, during the late summer, you probably remember seeing a show about watermelons in which one of our graduate students, Dennis Scott, was talking about some of his research. And in that plot of watermelons, he had some seedless watermelons that were growing. Now, of course, seedless watermelons are a favorite for all of us because we find them in the grocery stores a lot of times in different displays, but we also see them in food marts and salad bars. And of course, if we grow them in our home garden, it's a fun thing to do too. But if any of you have ever tried to grow seedless watermelons, you know that it's not an easy thing to do. First of all, the seeds are quite expensive, and that's because they're hard to produce, and there's usually not a very good supply of them. Now, there's about 18 different varieties of seedless watermelons, but let's give you a few suggestions today on how to grow seedless watermelons to make it a little bit easier. And we're very fortunate to have the greenhouse like this here on campus that makes it easier, but we'll give you some pointers how you can do it at home as well. Here we've got in front of us a heating mat or heating pad that's down in this particular boarded area. And there's cables that run under these flats that help generate heat from the bottom of the tray. And that's real important on watermelons because remember, watermelons are a warm season crop, and we plant them in Oklahoma around the last part of April or the first few weeks of May, depending on which part of the state you're in. So we're starting our seedless watermelons in containers with bottom heat. Now, the way you do that at home is to plant them and set them on top of a refrigerator or something where you're generating some heat, because the faster you get them to emerge out of the soil, the better it is. Now, these particular ones are planted in plastic, but really that's not the way to go, because anytime you pull that up, you're going to disturb the root system, and watermelons are very sensitive when you're transplanting them. So it would actually be better to use some peat pots. And here we've got a 6-pack, which is peat pots, and these are compressed peat moss that once it gets moist, you can tear them apart and plant them directly in the ground. And you want to make sure that you cover the peat moss because you don't want it exposed to the soil or air temperature because it will help dry it out. So really it would be better for you to start them in something like this, or you might remember the Jiffy 7s that we've used before on the show, where when you put them in water, they swell up and expand, and you could put your seeds in there and transplant those directly into the soil as well. But the problem that you need to be aware of, seedless watermelons, the seed is actually a wrinkled seed compared to the other seeded watermelons. And here you'll notice we've got some of the seeds that are sticking on the cotyledons. And the cotyledons are actually the two leaves that were in the seed to begin with, sometimes referred to as the embryo. And here is a good example. These are the cotyledons, but this is really the first true leaf, as we refer to it, once the seedling has started to grow. So what happens is that seed will stick on the cotyledons and it will dry up and it never can open up, and you can actually lose your seedling. Now, in a greenhouse, we've got a lot of humidity and the optimum conditions, and so the seeds are not sticking on the cotyledons. But in your home, or when you plant them outside with the wind blowing, chances are on the seedless they're going to stick, and that's going to cause some problems. So what you need to do is, once you get to that point, just help that seedling along by removing the seed off the top so it can open up and continue to grow. And again, it's real crucial that you do that because you may lose the seedlings right off the bat. Now, seeded watermelons can be planted directly out into the ground in your garden, but seedless watermelons, again, you want to try to start in the transplants. But another problem with seedless watermelons are that they're not very good in producing pollen. So you need to get another variety, and we're using sugar baby, and we're planting that the same time with the seedless, but you can also plant them directly in the ground since it's a seeded variety. And that way there'll be other blossoms opened up at the same time, and you'll get better cross-pollination and you'll have a better fruit set. So as a reminder, if you're going to start seedless watermelons, try to do them 2 to 3 weeks before you plant them. Use peat pots, something you can plant directly in the ground. Germinate them with good bottom heat, and then once they're germinated, give them plenty of moisture, light. Set them outside when the soil temperatures are warm, usually around 80 degrees, and then we'll keep you informed and let you know how those watermelons are doing. And we'll talk a little bit later on in the season too about seedless watermelons.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.